Hello everyone, welcome to the Advanced UiPath Document Understanding Part 5, where we'll be talking about the post-processing. So this series has been very long and we basically covered a lot of topics for UiPath Document Understanding, starting from the basics, and this is the last section of the document understanding series where we talk about the last few steps on how to extract the validated data and how we can use the extracted data to train and prepare the training data for our machine learning extractors and also for the classifiers. So let's have a look. So this is our workflow where we stopped in the previous session where we talked about how we can handle the validation using different activities like the create document validation action, and then we talked about writing the validation logic and so on. So just reminding again, the data extraction, the post-processing part also happens within this classification. So as you all remember, each document can have multiple document types inside. So we have to process each and every classification we identified. So that is why we are using this parallel for each. So same applies for the post-processing part of the document understanding. So all that should go under this sequence. So if you want to create another process and invoke it just like we did over here, you can do that as well. Uh, yeah, so in this section, here to organize the files, basically to organize the classified documents and move it into different folders, we invoked another process during the first part of the classification. So if you think that you can use another process and perform the data extraction and the preparation of training data, it is possible. So it's good if you can do that rather than adding all the activities here. But for the demo purpose, for the video purpose, I will include it in this particular solution itself for easy demonstrating. Okay, so highlight this sequence and I will scroll down, and right here I'm going to add a new sequence. So for to easily use it, you can build the sequence here and then later extract it as a different workflow and you can add it to another process. So there are different ways of doing it. So try that out. So I will rename this sequence saying post processing. So in here we'll be uh, looking at how we can extract the final data that comes either through automatic verification or manual verification using Action Center based on our workflow we created earlier. So either way, the final output is getting assigned to validated extraction data on both sides of this if condition. So just to remind you again, this if condition checks whether we need manual verification or not based on the logic we performed here for different document types. And if we need manual verification, we create action If not, we automatically verify it. So we'll be using that variable. So to do this, there's another activity called export extraction results under intelligent OCR, and the extraction results I can use the validated extraction data because it is the output that we get from here. And then you have a data set. Just press Ctrl K and create your new dataset variable. So this is my dataset variable. So right now, if you go into properties, here you can see the confidence. Earlier we used this confidence to build our validation logic. So if I am to show you over here, this is the validation part where we use the export extraction results, the same activity. There we use the confidence level. But right now, since we have done the validation and we have got the final result, I'm not going to use any of the confidence values. But if you think that you need it, you can still use it and extract. So why, you might again ask why I am not using this same export extraction result activity or the output of that. It's because here we used the automatic extraction data. So based on that, we decided whether we need the manual verification or not. And if the manual verification is needed, user can change the data. So that's why I'm using another activity based on the output of this. So here I will, for today's video's purpose, I will not be using the confidence. So how are we going to train our classifier? So we are using the intelligent keyword classifier. So to train it, so you already know that it is using a JSON file that has all the data that of the documents that we trained initially. So this training is, let me go back to the classification. So here you can see we are giving a document file path, and if we go into manage learning, you can see that these documents are trained on some documents that we did initially. So in your case, your numbers might differ because you have only used some files that we have shared. So don't worry about that. So now we are looking at, no matter the initial training you did, how we are going to train the documents for each and every run that we do with this workflow. So for each execution, for each documented process, it will train the classifier. So going here again, to train it, we have a set of training activities. So you can search for train, and there's an activity called train classifier scope. This is what we need to train the classifiers. So earlier we used the keyword based classifier or intelligent keyword classifier at the classification stage, but here we are using the training part of it. So just like before, you can use you can provide the information. So the document path should be, you can get it from here if you're not sure. It's the doc item, or you can scroll up and you can get it from there as well. So we used it a couple of times. So here it says the classification document path. So we'll use that. So I'm using the classification document path. The document text is the text variable we used, the document object model, and the human validated data. So here we are using the validated extraction data variable. So for this training purpose, there are two options. Either you can train based on the extracted data, or you can train based on the classification data. So for our scenario, I'll be using the validated extraction data because that has the final result of the full process. So I'll be using that. And the taxonomy comes with the doc taxonomy. So remember, you can't use both fields. So it has to be either human validated data or it has to be human verified classification data. It's always either one. So for my purpose, I'll be using the validated data. And here I'm going to use the intelligent keyword classifier trainer because we are using the intelligent keyword classifier. So I'll paste it under this and use the same file path as I'm using in the intelligent keyword classifier. So I can just copy and paste this file path, scroll down and paste it over here. And if you go to manage learning, you can see the same result because it is referring to the same file. And I will just say save. And you have to go to configure classifiers and enable all the document types that you are going to train using your uh, classifier trainer over here. So for now, I'll be using it for all the documents and click on save. So what basically happens here is based on the validated data, it will use the keywords because you know that intelligent keyword classifier is using the keywords, and it will use the certain keywords and it will update this JSON file with the latest records so that next time when you are doing the classification over here, it will be using the updated file and it will improve the classification part of your process. So over time, so at some point it might not give you the exact result, but with the trained or updated classification data that it has in the JSON file, next time it will be able to classify your documents properly with multiple uh, executions or multiple training runs. Okay, since we have covered the classification training here, the next thing is to use the training, basically the train extractor scope to get or generate the data where we can use it to train the machine learning models. So this is a different way of doing it. So in the classification, it updates the file directly, updates the JSON file directly, and next time you are processing, it automatically picks it, the updated data. But when it comes to train extractor, it is a little bit different. So you will see that. So let me put this activity here. So right after the train classifier scope, I'm going to include the train extractor scope. Here you can see that it is asking for the document path just like before. So I will provide that, and the document text document object model, and human validated data, which will be the same variable as before. Now the next thing is, here we are talking about training the extractors. So what sort of extractors can we train? So let's get back to the extractors, data extraction scope. So here we used the machine learning extractor for a couple of machine learning models. As you see over here, we used it for invoices and we used it for purchase orders. So these are the machine learning models that we can use the train extractor scope to train these models. So basically, the data generated through this train extractor scope and the training activities inside that will be used to train these two uh, machine learning models. And that's available in AI Fabric. Okay, so what is the activity that we can use to train it? Here you can see there is another activity called machine learning extractor trainer. So this is the activity we need. So I'll be dragging and dropping this activity into the train extractor scope. And then it asks for the endpoint and the ML skill. So as you did in the extractor, here you can get the ML skill by clicking on the refresh button and selecting it from the dropdown. So in our case, we'll be using the skill invoice for this case. So I'm selecting that and have this checkbox enabled and click on get capabilities. So you can see now it has properly configured. So the next thing we need to do is we need to give the output folder. So what is the output folder is, so I have created a simple folder called training data. So over here I have created two other folders called invoices and purchase orders. There's no data inside these folders. So what happens is when this executes, it will get all the extracted information that you need to train the AI model, and it will be converted into a set of JSON files, and also the executed document will also be inside this folder. So all that will happen automatically through this activity. So for invoices, I need to provide the invoice file path. So I'll be providing that over here. And the next thing is go to configure extractors, select invoices, and click on save. Okay. Okay, so the next thing is you need to select these four the items from these drop downs. Forgot that part. So for invoice number, you have to say it's invoice number, invoice date, vendor address, total. So if you remember, these fields are coming directly from the machine learning model. You just have to select it. Unit price and line amount, and click on save. So now you can see it is configured properly. The next thing is now we have purchase orders. So we have to use the same thing to train the purchase order model. So again, you are going to use the machine learning extractor trainer over here. This time, instead of invoices, we are selecting purchase orders and follow the same steps. Get capabilities, provide the folder path over here, and go to configure extractors, expand purchase order, select it, So you can see the next machine learning extractor trainer. This is the one we did for invoices. This is for the purchase order. And again, you just have to select the field numbers or the field names, PO number, PO date, client name, address, vendor name, is the delivery date, PO items, line number, description, quantity, unit price, and line amount. So just like you did for extractor, when you're configuring the extractor, it's the same steps you have to follow here, but this is for the training part. And here, if you like rename this, let's say invoices, and POs. And if you now go to configure extractors, you can see the names available here. So it can be you can easily recognize which one to use for which machine learning model. So that is configured now. The next thing we have to do is to actually extract the data and save it in an Excel file. So these two are done to train the classifier and also the extractors. So now we need to get the data. So for that, I'll be using the output of this data set of the export extraction results. So the variable is export validated data set. So I need a for each. Why do I need a for each? Is because that data set can contain multiple data tables. Because as you have seen while we were testing the extraction and the validation, the extracted data consisted of multiple sheets when we printed it in Excel. So I'll be using the for each, and I'll be giving the file or the variable name validated extraction data, which is it's export validated data set. So why it's showing an error is because this variable is a data set and this item has to be a data table. You have to go to properties and change it to data table because each individual item consists of tables. And over here, after the data set variable, you have to specify dot tables. Yes, we are getting the tables out of it. And I'm going to change this item variable into something called export data for easy reference, and also if item is used above, it will not conflict with that. So right now I have to do is I have another folder over here which is called output data. So I can save my files inside this. All you need to do is you just need the right range to write the data into this folder. And the sheet name should be the names that you get out of these data tables. So if I say export data dot table name, it should give a unique name for each and every sheet because that name is already available in this data table. And I need to write it from A1, or I can keep it as blank, and I will add the headers, and the data table is export data, the same variable you have in this for each. So what's going to be the file path? So right now we are processing each and every file. So, and in each file, there can be multiple documents. So we need to know the document category. So remember at the beginning, somewhere when we are discussing about the classification, we extracted the document type uh, over here. So you can see the document category. We are extracting that in the data validation. So let's see what's the scope of this document category variable. So it is inside process document for each classification. So it's inside the same sequence that we are in. So we can use it. So we'll be using the file name and that category to get or derive the new file name for this Excel file. So what I can use is I can give the file path to this output folder along with the another expression that gets the file name of the original file and also the category. So we'll get to this workbook path, paste my folder path here, and after this I'll be using paths dot get file name without extension, and I'll be getting the file name from the original document, which is the classified document path. This will give me the file name of the original file, and then I need to get the uh, document category. So I'll be adding a simple separator here, like underscore, and I'll be using the document category plus the extension of the Excel file. So this should work, and I will click on OK, and you have the right range configured. So now let's see whether how this thing works. So as of now, you won't be able to see actually whether these files are getting updated unless you open it and check based on the date. But you can see uh, the right range will get updated. So let's see. So in our case, we have two documents here in samples, an invoice and a purchase order. So let's see how this works. So I'll click on so it starts executing, and I will give the folder path samples. So right now it's checking the confidence levels and everything in the background. And this was a message box that we configured last time that comes from the validation logic we put in. Okay, so it has gone to the validation station. Let's see whether there's anything already in the output data. No, not yet. So we'll go to AI, the actions, go to unassigned. Yeah, so this is the, okay, so we have both over here. Was created a couple of minutes, few seconds back. So I'll assign it to self. I will assign the other one as well. Okay, so we are in the document data validation. So I'm not going to go through the same validation as before. I'll just uh, add the total values just to show you how it is being extracted. And since you already know how to do the validation based on our previous sessions, so I completed that. And the other one is this for the purchase order. Okay, so we have the client name and the vendor name. Let's say it's this guy. All right. Delivery date, I'll capture it here. So these extractions will improve over time when we actually train the AI models, and that's why we are getting that trained data out of using the extractor trainer so that we can use that data to train the models. So I will click on check this part as well. Let's not worry about this stuff at the moment because we already know how to do that, and click on save. But when the actual process is running, you have to make sure all these things are validated properly and extracted properly because that data will be used to train the models. So you need to have the proper data. So since I'm running through the studio, I need to resume. So if you are running through a attended bot or unattended robot, basically unattended robot, it will automatically resume. But we are running in the debugging mode, so that's why you had to resume it manually from studio. So you can see it executed properly. We don't have any errors. And let's see our output data. And here you can see we have two new files for invoice and for the purchase order. You can see the file name and the category, same for purchase order. And if you go to training data, see earlier this invoice file folder was empty. Now you can see different other folders. So before getting into this part, let's take a look at the output in the output data in the invoice Excel. So here you can get all the extracted values. You can see whatever I didn't extract properly is staying blank or either it will be wrong. That's why you need to do the validation properly because this same data will be used to train the models. So you can see it is having different sheets. This is a simple representation of the high level fields, and this is kind of like the formatted one. And if you go to line items, the invoice had only one item. So that's there. In formatted one, also you can see the same thing. So what's the difference between the normal one and the formatted? If you have multiple lines, it will have all those string formatting of characters like slash n and slash r and so on. You can actually see if you process that kind of a document. That will be only visible in the formatted sheet in both here, but in the others, it will have the normal value. So same goes with purchase orders. Here it will have all the fields that we extracted, and you can go to items, and here are the items. Okay, you have these things here because we didn't do that validation properly there. So if you do it properly, it will be extracted. Yeah, and you can train the model as well. All right, so now we have taken a look at the output. Now going to training data. Let's take a look at the invoice. Here you can see three folders. Under documents, you see the original document we processed. This is the document invoice. And if you go to metadata, here you will see a JSON file of the data we extracted and validated. And this JSON file is what is being used along with the documents folder to train the data. So here you can see there are different coordinates, and you can have different values as well. Let's search for something. That was there. Yeah. See, in the description you can actually see the values as well. And this is another name. So it will basically have everything that we use while we are validating and extracting. This same thing applies to purchase orders as well. And in predictions, you don't have anything as of now. And if you go to purchase orders, you will have the same structure and the document, metadata, and the predictions. So this is what we are going to use to train the models. So for today's video, in this one, we only focused on how to train the classification and how to train the extractor, basically prepare the data to train the extractor and extract the values. So how can we use this extracted information to train the models in AI Fabric? That is for another video. So by this video, we are actually coming towards an end of this document understanding series. But there is a very, very special episode that comes in next, which we use this actual data to train the models. So that is a very special episode where I will be showing how to use this extracted data to train and what are the limitations and everything. So stay tuned for that. I'll be posting it soon. Until then, practice and make yourself familiar with this document understanding, as we have covered everything related to document understanding, from creating AI models, doing the classification, digitization, extraction, validation, which is one of the complex parts. And now we did the post-processing part. So when it comes to the workflow design, this is all you need to do for document understanding. And you can have your own formats. You can have multiple processors linked together to handle these things. As I said at the beginning of the video, you can have this entire sequence in another process, and you can simply invoke it here just to keep the main workflow tidy and simple. So practice it and practice how to do the parallel processing as we have done. And I will see you in another video with how to use this trained data to actually train the AI models. So stay tuned. Until then, take care.